Good evening, everyone. I'm Jason Judd, Executive Director of Educate Maine, and I want to welcome you to the next speaker series for the Education Innovators series. We're really excited that you're joining us tonight for the conversation. And many of you have been with us since the beginning and have been loyal attendees, and we're excited to have you again tonight. So this speaking program is brought to you by 4 organizations that have been working together on this project, one of them being Educate Maine. Also, we have 3 organizations, the Education Action Forum of Maine, Thomas College, and the Maine State Chamber of Commerce Education Foundation. And we firmly believe our 4 organizations that collaborating and partnering across a number of organizations on similar goals leads to greater impact, which is why we come together for this speaker series. We want to make sure that educators and business leaders are having great conversations, are learning from each other, and that's why we brought this program for you. Really, so much of this program has been about systems change and looking at how our systems in education and workforce can change here in the state and how we can innovate and learn from each other. And again, in order to make appropriate systems change, you've got to have diverse stakeholders, diverse leaders, all working together to solve problems and come up with great solutions. So this speaking event tonight is also linked to a larger project that a number of our organizations have been working on called Maine Education 2050. And it's a statewide community research and engagement project using kind of small group conversations and the power of artificial intelligence to lift up the voices from all around Maine to really look at what education in 2050 needs to look like to help inform legislators, school board members, organizations, business leaders, civic leaders, youth, and others on how we might go about having the education system evolve to prepare our learners for the jobs as well as our community goals of 2050. So that project has its own specific website, which we'll go ahead and put in the chat. If you're interested in joining some of those small group conversations, go ahead to the link in the chat, visit the website, and you can actually sign up for some of those small group conversations. We're doing them all throughout the state in all 16 counties. Thankfully, many of them are virtual, which makes it really flexible for you to be a part. And then we're also partnering with our friends at the State Chamber of Commerce to do many industry conversations with industries all across the spectrum in the state. In addition, we're interviewing groups of educators, groups of youth, and groups of civic leaders to get input on what the future of education should look like in 2050. So that project will culminate in an Education Innovation Summit in the fall in partnership with the Maine Department of Education, where we'll look at the data and look at the patterns and themes in the data and have some great conversations about what we need to do to be more innovative in the state and make sure that our education system evolves, with the input of so many of these organizations that have been part of the project. So we're really excited about the work. Dive into the website, take a look, see how you can be involved, and you can reach out to any of the organizations that are leading this call to kind of learn more about that project. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jennifer Chase, who's been organizing our presenters in tonight's speaking conversation. So Jennifer, on to you.
Great, thank you, Jason. So yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Chase, the Executive Director of Education Action Forum of Maine. So this event tonight is a follow-up to the event we held back in March that some of you attended called Imagining What School Could Be. And you heard that night Ted Dintersmith share his ideas to inspire us to develop school into a place where both teachers and students can thrive. So today our speaker, Rob Houben, will expand on this topic and locate those ideas within a specific school, the Agora School, which is located in the Netherlands. We'll then have a moderated discussion and a Q&A following his presentation. So feel free during the whole event to introduce yourselves in the chat, ask your questions, make your comments. It's a really fun way to engage with the program and each other. So I first came across Rob's work a few years ago when I read an article about Agora School on Medium, and I was absolutely entranced. And I went on to read pretty much everything I could find about the school and about Rob online. So it was a dream come true earlier this winter when Rob agreed to join us in this event. He has experience as a teacher, a policymaker, a project leader, a team leader, a manager, a coach, facilitator, a public speaker. Rob's done a lot. He started his career in 2000 as a technology teacher, and he was eventually tapped in 2015 to support the Agora School, a government-funded secondary school, using a truly innovative model that you'll hear more about tonight. He's been there ever since as a teacher and manager, and he just recently took a position bringing Agora principals to schools all around the world while also keeping a close connection with the Agora School community. And again, you'll hear more about that. So we're also very lucky to have Crystal Williams as our moderator this evening. Crystal is the founding manager at Providentia Group, a legal and business advisory firm focused on achieving economic dignity for all. Crystal brings an important and respected perspective to issues of innovation, strategic partnerships, and board governance. In 2020, she founded the Alpha Legal Foundation, and she currently serves as a technology advisor for Maine Technology Institute and as a member of the governance committee for Maine Public Radio. Finally, Crystal was the inaugural chairwoman of Kinotech, a rapidly growing startup here in Maine. Crystal holds a JD from the University of Maine School of Law, an MBA from the Amos Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth, and BAs in both mathematics and psychology from Williams College. Our panelists tonight are Dr. Julie Meltzer, Patrick Breeding, Megan Gordon, and Katrina Hutt. Julie is the newly appointed Director of K-12 and Teacher Education at the Institute of Humane Education, which, if you didn't know, is located right here in Surrey, Maine. Julie was Maine Curriculum Leader of the Year in 2019 before retiring from her position on MDI. She has extensive experience as a teacher educator, a consultant, researcher, program evaluator, speaker, and author. Her master's degree is in teaching and learning from Lesley College, and her doctorate is in curriculum and instruction from Virginia Tech. Patrick Breeding is the co-founder of Marin Skincare, a Maine-based company that creates skincare products using a patented marine glycoprotein. You have to look that up, what that is. He's a passionate entrepreneur who cares a great deal about education, which is how we connected just over a year ago. He was an Innovate for Maine Fellow in 2018-19 and is the co-founder of Kinotech. While Patrick is a native of Connecticut, he came to our great state for college and grad school. He's a graduate of University of Maine with a BA in biological engineering, and he earned his MS in biomedical engineering from University of Maine in just 2019. Our final two panelists are Katrina and Megan, who will join the discussion partway through to bring the students' perspective. Katrina and Megan are juniors at Narraguagas High School and also career and technical education students at Coastal Washington County Institute of Technology, where their studies have been focused on healthcare. They're currently serving their community in their role as practicing CNAs while also attending school full-time. So without further ado, I will welcome Rob to the spotlight and hope that you all enjoyed the program.
Well, good evening. I have the night shift here in the Netherlands because it's almost 12 o'clock now. But I'm still excited enough to keep you busy for the next like 20-25 minutes. I'm first going to do a little speech on my basic thoughts of education and on how my school, our school functions. And well, later on, we will introduce, you will also see the introduced panelists. So I hope you're still in the game then. And I hope I'm able to enjoy you the next couple of 20-25 minutes. First of all, I want to tell that although I worked for a while at our school since 2015, I'm not one of the founding fathers. We had 3 principals in our district who thought, well, we have to disrupt this system. And they came up with a leaflet. And from there, we started working with a couple of teachers, and the amount of teachers grow during time. But before I go into the school too much, I want to share some slides with you and give you a main idea about what's going on in my head and later on about what's going on in our school. So I'm going to try to share my screen now. I hope that works out. And if not, somebody needs to shout out to me immediately. But I believe you can see my slides. I see thumbs up at Jennifer. So first of all, as I was saying, my name is Rob. The last 7 years, I was fortunate enough to work at a fascinating school, Agora. A school where we respectfully treat everybody unequal. And before I start talking about our school, I first want to go into these 3 lovely fictional children. But they are children we all know. We all have them in our classes, or we are their parents. And let's say this boy on the left is Max, and Max lives in the Netherlands. And just like the Max, a lot of you know, he's one of the best car racers in Europe at the moment. And I'm just looking at my slides. Okay, now it's going to the next one. Yeah, great. So he's one of the best car racers in Europe at the moment at the age of 12. And when you are that talented at sports in the Netherlands, you get what we call a top sport talent status. And you can get that at the age of 12. And this means that the school is allowed to make personal exceptions for Max. These exceptions, in short, are that he gets a personal supervisor who can coordinate school and sport activities. So this supervisor, for instance, arranges days off from school so he can attend sport events and, if necessary, makes it even possible to postpone tests. This personal supervisor also allows him to have a flexible school schedule. He can even exclude full subjects or parts of subjects as well. And he's also able to reduce the obligated amount of school hours by 20% by law in the Netherlands. So, well, I dream of a future in which we can arrange this for every child. And that's why I want to talk to you about these other two fictional children. And let's say this is Amy. And Amy is in luck because she's born last year. So we today can dream about her future in education. And I can tell you, she will have the best education ever because we took these principles that we already in the Netherlands apply with Max, and we apply them also with Amy in her future. But she will not be a great sports talent. And Amy will get to know that she loves technical stuff. And imagine Amy is going to the school at the age of 4. She gets many opportunities to explore those practical skills she has. And she also, because she likes the practical skills and practical stuff, she also dives into the theoretical stuff that's behind those technical skills or even necessary. And she's completely in sync and she feels appreciated, and her self-confidence grows a lot of that because of that. And in time, she discovers a talent for carpentry. And she, like Max, has a personal supervisor. But that personal supervisor doesn't act like he does with Max because, of course, Amy doesn't have a sport talent. He helps her to coordinate her theoretical and practical skills. What he also makes sure of is that she's getting a flexible schedule, a schedule in which she can make a combination between the theoretical and practical stuff. They don't exclude full subjects. No, they explore subjects based on their interests. So Amy doesn't go to biology lessons. Amy gets an interest for wood and for carpentry. And that's what the first topic at their biology lesson will be as well. She will first explore forests and wood and how to shape wood and bend wood. And then she will explore different types of wood as well. And that's why Amy also gets a lot of interest in biology. So after that, she of course gets the same rules as Max does. So she is also allowed to postpone tests because she's really excited. She can work with a famous carpenter next week and she can do an internship there. And that's a good reason to postpone a test next week, because she gets even more excited if she can work with this great carpenter, or if she can go to a carpenter's competition. And with motivation she gets there, she will also get interest in more theoretical stuff. So, of course, we don't have to reduce her obligated times of hours spent on education, because she wants to spend as much time as possible on education, because she wants to get more skills and she wants to know the theoretical stuff behind that as well. But as I was saying, I also want to talk to you about Rachel. And Rachel isn't that fortunate, because Rachel is not in my dreams. She's in school at the moment. And unfortunately, she fails numerous theoretical tests. And that makes her struggle with her self-confidence. She gets few opportunities to do practical. she doesn't even know that she likes practical. She does not feel happy at school, and she doesn't feel appreciated there. Her self-confidence decreases almost on a daily basis. And she doesn't, like Max, get a personal supervisor who makes sure that she spends time on things she loves. She gets guidance to spend more time on her like my incapabilities, speaking English, pronouncing English. Despite the fact that everyone knows that she is having a hard time with a number of subjects, she has to do the same tests for all the subjects at the same moment as her classmate. So no postponed test, not a flexible school schedule, no subjects that she can exclude, no exceptions for Rachel. And it's getting even worse because school responds to this. School responds to her failing tests. They respond with more personal guidance in the areas to prevent her from falling behind, but she's already behind. So what, and if she's unfortunate, she also has rich parents. And if you have rich parents, they can spend a lot of money on after school tutoring. And what does Amy get then? She gets after school the same problems that she has at school. Everybody spends a lot of time on her capabilities instead of on things she's excited for. Rachel doesn't even know what she's excited for at school. So, and that's exactly where I want to talk to you about today, because we are putting kids in these terrible positions. And the most unfortunate thing is that at the end of the line, Amy could have been a great, I'm looking for the English word at the moment. She could be a great researcher, but because she never had the chance to do any practical work, she's institutionalized. At the age of 14, 15, when you can make these important decisions, she thinks that all the theoretical stuff is very important. So she will never become this great researcher because she never discovered that talent. School never helped her to discover talent. School has helped her to discover her capabilities. So our best 3 doctor in 2030 won't even know that she would become the best 3 doctor and will never be the best 3 doctor because she's institutionalized. And the strangest thing about that is that after like a 10-year period of helping these kids, in my opinion, in the wrong direction, they tell these kids that the system won't be modified for them. They tell them at the age of 15 that they are lazy, that they don't want to do anything. They tell them that if these kids don't take their responsibilities, they will fail school. So after a whole period of indoctrinating this kid, we tell these children, it's up to you now, you're in control. And we tell them that at the moment that there is nothing to be in control about at the worst point of their life. And that was one of the big motivations for me to change stuff in education. Because, and I have to go back to this side, I am a Rachel. And I always have to take a deep breath at this point in my presentation. I am a Rachel. And why am I a Rachel? I spent up until the age of 12 at primary school, like I was on top of the world. And then I had to go to the Dutch system into secondary school. And within 4 weeks, they told my parents that I was a special educational needs kid, that they couldn't do anything with me, and that I had to have low expectations for the future because I was dyslexic, and they didn't saw it happening with a dyslexic kid. After refusing to work with them in the way they wanted me to work, because they want to send me off to special educational needs, and I didn't want to go there. They had to stay, I could stay in that school, but they made a lot of rules where I had to live up to. And they made one thing very obvious to me. Rob, your future is very small. You can only study mathematics because with all the other things, you have your disabilities, your incapabilities will be in your way. I never scored out of 10 more than a 5 for English. Never. Not in writing and not in speaking. Never ever. So they told me that I could only do mathematics. Well, there is only one place in the world where you can just do mathematics and ignore the rest, and that's becoming a mathematics teacher. So I thought I'm going to get rid of this system and I'm going to do it from the inside, and I'm going to be a teacher. And that happened in 2000. I became a teacher. And in 2015, they asked me to come to Agora. And this is our school building. It's in the city of Roermond. It's in the south of the Netherlands. And in this school building, the first thing I tell everybody when they come in is that they should forget what they know about teaching and start with what they really know about learning. At Agora, we teach students to manage their own learning process. We do this without courses. We do this without classes. We don't make timetables, and we don't divide them into age groups. We teach students to set and achieve their own goals and their own challenges. When students start at Agora, we ask them a simple question, and that's, what do you want to make, do, or learn? And whatever the answer is, we go from there. We figure out their talents, their interests, and their ambitions. And that's how we keep motivation up. And when motivation is up, everything is possible. So please, people, if you want to take one thing from today, forget what you know about teaching and let's talk learn. And that's what I'm going to do the rest of the presentation. This is our building from the inside. And it's a place where all people who work there trust in the fact that everyone wants to learn. And if you have the slightest doubt of that fact, you are selling someone short. It could be a teacher, it could be a student. Everybody is willing to learn. There is one slight problem. Most people don't want to learn what you want to teach them at the moment. And that's why you need to police them, and that's why you need to do a lot of stuff where you didn't want to be, where you had to do a lot of things which weren't appealing to get into education. So forget about all that stuff. Really start with how can I ignite this flame? Where can I start with this? And that's what we try to do. And you had a look at the building from the inside. We believe a school should have a mix of what we say Harvard University, not because we're fans of Harvard University, but it has that image of all the knowledge in the world is present there. Well, that's quite easy. We have an internet connection and everybody can use it. So now the downside is, of course, that we also have to tell our students how to find worthful information on the internet. And that's not a downside, that's a lifelong lesson, and a lot of schools are forgetting that lesson. We also believe it has to have something like a Buddhist monastery, a place where everybody can feel at ease, be himself. You don't have to be religious, but you at least have to feel at ease at school. It has to be a creative laboratory, a place where you can make and create everything you can imagine. Because if you want to create something, and that's also our question, what do you want to make, do, or learn? Because if you're going to make something, you're definitely going to do something, and you're definitely going to learn something. So we have a lot of opportunities to make and create. It also has to be like a marketplace. And that's why we called it Agora, because Agora is this old Greek marketplace that's in the middle of the old Athens. That's where all the wise people met, but where you also could see your first banana in the year zero, you know. And it's a place where everybody comes to debate, to interact, to see new things, to get inspired. And also you have a big responsibility to inspire others, because networking is a social thing. And that's going to happen on that market. And that's why we call it Agora. It's not only our school, it's the connection that we want to make from our school to our city, to our country, to the whole world. So, and of course it has to feel and look a bit like Disneyland, because You have to feel amazed when you look around. Excitement has to be popping up when you enter a school. And also the people who work there have to act like they work at this level. They have to be friendly, they have to be good guides, they have to make you comfortable. Because at least schools should be a place where children can be happy, despite what's going on in the rest of their lives. Yes, the film is, yeah, you can see my daughter now, okay. Well, that a bit about my school, but I also want to talk a bit about my beliefs. And you see my daughter here, and this is a long time ago, this is 7 years ago. And a couple of days before I could shoot this video, one of my neighbors came up and they gave us this bike. And they told me, my daughter's name is Alice. And they said, well, when Alice is older, maybe she can use this bike to learn how to cycle. And why was that a doubt? My daughter at that moment was on a tricycle with the pedals on the front wheel, immediately connected to the front wheel. And you know, these tricycles, they have these big plastic front wheels and back wheels. And my daughter couldn't move that bike. I always had to push her. Too much friction, I guess. And that was 3 days before this video. And my daughter, she talks a lot as well. And she immediately told me, Daddy, I want to learn to ride that bike now. And I said, well, difficult because it's very big. And she said, just make it smaller. I want to do it. And she was right. I could make it a little bit smaller. And she just fit on it. She couldn't put her foot good properly on the ground, but she could make it. So, and you know how it is, learning kids how to ride the bike. You have to take them by the neck, run around the street. And after 15 minutes, they cry and you can go inside. That's that for that day. So that's what I did. And on the second day, I was quite astonished. She woke up in the morning, first thing she said, I want to learn to ride the bike. So then you can run around for like 20 minutes, they cry again, you can go inside again. And then on the third day, she didn't ask at all. And on the fourth day, she asked again. And I just left the driveway of my house and she said, okay, let me go, I'm good. And I was like, what? So I grabbed my phone and I shot this video. And of course, I'm quite proud about my daughter, but I'm telling you this story because it's not about my daughter, it's about the response of one of my neighbors. And because of privacy, I left him out of the video, but I didn't know that at the moment. But as soon as I stopped making this video, he came up to me and he said, how old is she? And I said, she's 2 and 9 months. And he didn't reply at all. He went home, he grabbed his 5-year-old son, he grabbed the bike of his 5-year-old son, put his son on the bike and started running. And in the evening, he rang my doorbell and he asked me, Rob, how long did you do that with Alice? How often? I said, well, every day, about like 15 minutes or so. And I saw him running for the next 3 weeks, every evening, running. And of course, you maybe are curious for the end result. Well, there was a very obvious end result. His son hates biking. And why am I telling you this story? Well, I'm telling you this story because this is exactly what is going wrong in education. We compare children full time. And when we as teachers not doing it, kids are doing it amongst themselves or parents are doing it. So what this stupid neighbor of mine forgot to ask was if my daughter was able to ice skate. Because if he had asked the right question, and that in this case was, is your daughter able to ice skate? Then he didn't have to force his kid into biking. I could say, no, she can't. And he could have been a proud father. But what he did was I told him that my daughter was 2 and 9 months, and he immediately got that feeling, my son is behind. So I have to put him on a bike, I have to start running. I'm just gonna follow the same recipe as Rob did, and that will work. Well, it won't. And what I've learned in my time, in my 20 years in education, is that every kid in the Netherlands wants to learn to ride the bike before like the age of 7 or the age of 8. Every kid around the world wants to be able to read before the age of 7 or the age of 8. But they all want to start with it when they're ready for it. And we just have to wait for that moment. And if you wait for that moment, you only have to put a little effort in it. to get them to write their book, or to get their language on a certain level, or to get their mathematics on a certain level. You just have to wait for it. But you have to observe what's going on and pick the correct moment, and then put all the energy and effort in it that you have, and you will only have to do that for a short time. And that's what we started doing at Agora. So we are not forcing kids to learn something, we are looking at the opportunity, and we connect what they need to learn to what they want to know. Because what they need to learn and what they want to know are two different things. So at Agora, we don't start something because we should, but because a kid is inspired and motivated to do things they hate, to achieve things they like. And that's how we get kids in their strength zone, and that's where the magic happens. And now my daughter is older, and I see her playing basketball. And what do you think when she sees this happening? What I see is that she and the other kids playing, they're all motivated. They run up to the basket, try to tip in the ball, or catch it when it comes down. They try to shoot again. Motivation is high. Try again. They put in the extra effort, not less. What do kids when they see this? Do they also want to put in the extra effort? Is that their first response? Is their first response, I'm going to try it again. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to improve. So I think we all know the answer, that this is not good for helping kids to develop. So their first feeling here is giving up. It's not. So testing is getting kids in a demotivated zone, and we want to get them in their strength zone. So at Agora, we only test children when it's absolutely necessary by law to do it. And during the while, we make sure that we, like with basketball, that we observe the game. We see how they handle mathematics, we see languages, etc. And by making these observations, we also know that they are progressing. We don't have to test them for that. And then the strange thing is, kids want to know where they are, and they ask for a test. And we don't have to grade that test because they ask for the test, because they want to know where to improve. And that's a total different motivation for this. So that was a little bit about my daughter. I also want to tell you a little bit about my wife. Suppose I'm on a holiday, and my wife and I, we are walking for like 2-3 hours. My wife, of course, behind me, because she's always like, well, Rob, you decide where to go. And then after 2-3 hours, we are here at this bridge. And I can tell you, my wife, she will immediately tell me, Rob, forget about it. I'm never going to cross that bridge. I'm staying here. And then I'm going to do the same things then as in the year 2000, when I was a mathematics teacher, and in the year 2005 and in the year 2008, I'm going to try to soften things up. And with mathematics, I did that by making PowerPoint presentations and later on making YouTube videos. I was selling the same mathematics. I just was dressing it up, you know. And that's what I'm going to do with my wife in this case as well. So what I'm going to tell my wife, I'm going to try to convince her to want to cross the bridge. So I'm going to tell her, there is this great restaurant on the other side, and the view over there is even better. And they have your favorite food. You really need to go there. And it's across the bridge. And then it's like a 5-minute walk. I can almost smell the food, you know, so you have to go. And my wife will tell me, Rob, the food at the hotel wasn't bad yesterday, so let's go back. And I don't know how it's with you people at home, but in my case, we're going back then. But why am I telling you this? Well, suppose we could do this in a different manner. I'm sitting, I can go back in time. I'm sitting at the hotel and enjoying the weather. And at a certain point, my wife comes up to me and she said, I heard these people talking about a restaurant and they have my favorite food. And the walk up there seems to be great. And they have the greatest view. And my wife is explaining this to me. And I will tell her, well, Tanya, if you want to go there, figure out how to walk and I will follow, no problem. Well, I can tell you, if my wife figures out how to walk, she will not notice this bridge on the map. So we will still have the same problem when we come up to this bridge. But I've been walking behind my wife, and she has decided the goal, and she also has decided the route. And that will motivate her not to freeze up at this point. She will try to, when I was in front, was refusing to look for a solution. She will try to find a solution because she feels responsible, and it's her thing, and it's her route, it's her restaurant. So she will start talking to me like, Rob, maybe you can cover my eyes and hold me tight, and we might even do a couple of steps on the bridge. And when it doesn't shake too much, we can do some more steps. And I will say, okay, let's try that. And we try it, and it doesn't work for her. Then she will ask, for instance, do you think we can take a detour through the valley? It will take longer, but we still can make it to my favorite restaurant, and we can still have that great view, etc., etc. Or and if that's not working, she will say to me, well, Rob, maybe we can go by car, approach the hill from the other side. It will still be a long walk, but I will get to that restaurant because I want to go there. And this is exactly what we also do at Agora, because when we ask kids, what do you want? We are also asking them to make their own goals, to determine the route. And when they get in trouble, I'm always there in my coaching position observing, and I'm always there to assist them. But that's something else than policing them around. So these are not my infants, but I love this picture. And I love this picture because of these sponges in front of these kids. And I love it because a sponge is a great natural product. And if you have a good look at the picture, the sponge in front of them is about the same size as the sponge they have in their heads. And why do I start talking about the brains? Because I think brains are a natural sponge as well. I have never seen anybody pour a bucket of water into a sponge. Everybody knows, you throw the sponge into the water, it will suck up water, and I can take it with me. And I believe it works the same with brains. If you can put your brain in the best circumstances, you will learn and remember stuff. If you are here for the right reasons, if you are here because you want to know more about Agora, or you want to know more about taking another approach on education, you will remember some of my pictures. And that means that you have brought your brain in the right circumstances. And I believe everybody can do that. Teach kids how to do that. And you have to know who you as a person are for that as well. Because some people need to take their brains to an online presentation, and some people tuned out 10 minutes ago. They have to learn this in another way. And if you know that personally, then you can learn English language. Me as a person, when I was in secondary school, in my first 2 years, I scored 3 out of 10, 2 out of 10. And why was that? Because learning English in the Netherlands is totally focused on writing when I was at school. And I was a dyslexic. So as soon as I started looking BBC television, international movies without subtitling, this guy learned how to speak English. And that's knowing how to put your brain in the right circumstances. And you can still complain about my accent, of course. I will laugh with you. So at Agora, we try not to focus on knowledge transfer, but on the learning process. And the knowledge recording then comes into an overdrive. And that's why we need to treat people unequal, with a lot of respect for the individual. So at Agora, I want to go back to where I started. Please forget about teaching, and also on how schools are organized, and start with how we really know that learning works. We train our students to embrace the fact that they are going towards an uncertain future. They can't know everything about it. I don't know everything about the present. So why should I tell them that they should know everything about the future? We teach them to take a firm look at that future and to approach it with a lot of confidence. So what I've discovered is that at Agora, I feel that we are proving that we can help all learners to prepare for their future. It gives me the confidence and the experience to spread my personal wings as well, and come over to other schools and in other countries. And I'm not asking you then to be like Agora or to become an Agora. I ask you to find your own balance within your schools. And I invite you to become what I call a lifelong learning organization. And this is an organization that prepares everyone within the organization, including students, but also parents and also teachers and staff members, to keep up with the zeitgeist, because that is our biggest problem in education at the moment. We can't keep up with our zeitgeist. And I hope that we can turn these schools into organizations that can practice that, and that they also are able to preach that. And that, in my opinion, doesn't mean full personalization, because we don't want to create hermits. And we all know that the brain development of children isn't capable to make all the decisions that we as grown-ups can make. We have responsibilities as well in giving them guidance. So it should be about giving enough freedom to find out what people want to do and go from there. It's about giving them enough guidance to get them out of their comfort zone and keep them in their stretch zone. It's about finding and learning to maintain that balance. And I'm not talking about children at the moment. I'm talking about everybody, because we are all learners. So for me, I encourage these organizations to be like nature. And this is how I always approach my staff members at school, but also how I encourage them to approach our children. I encourage them to be like nature, and I believe they have to be like plants, trees, seaweed, and weeds. They have to be like plants who want to grow by nature. Grading or comparing plants with others doesn't motivate them to speed up the process. Pulling a plant to make it grow higher doesn't work either. It might even have a devastating effect. But you facilitating the perfect circumstances is what will make the difference. I say like trees, because in my philosophy, this stands for creating an environment of high expectations, reaching for the stars. And we should be like seaweeds, because seaweed is very flexible. It can go with the flow. It adjusts to what is necessary within the moment. And in my eyes, it listens and adapts to the zeitgeist. And of course, weeds, because weeds are very strong. They are not easy to destroy or to get rid of. I've had a terrible job this weekend in my garden with the weeds. So for me, it also stands for strong connections within your schools and within your networks. And of course, collaboration, because that's what makes weeds strong, collaborating amongst each other. I believe that a single plant or tree, or even seaweed, can be beautiful on its own, but it will get lonely. So working together will stand the test of time, and it will create a beautiful forest. And that is what we should try to do in our schools and in our learning environments. And that's what we need to learn our students, our staff members, and our organizations. And for the managers amongst us, and I believe we have to be like fungi, but that's another story. Check out this BBC video, and I can maybe talk to you about that some other time. Well, thank you for keeping up with me and hanging in there. And I will stop with the screen share at the moment. And I'm not quite sure who's taking over, but I will shut up and we will know within 10 seconds. Thank you.
Rob, thank you so much. I really enjoyed listening to you, your enthusiasm, your ideas, and in appreciation for the fact that it's almost tomorrow where you are. I just want to say on behalf of everyone who joined tonight, thank you for taking the night shift and sharing about your work. I think it's safe to say that we are all the better for it. I too am a Rachel, and I'm curious how many of those who joined us tonight felt that their educational experience, or in their educational experience, they were also Rachels, as you described at the top of your talk. So I'm just going to invite all of you who joined us tonight. If your educational experience left you feeling like Rachel, if you had the Rachel experience, put it in the chat. This is a discussion tonight, and we really want to make sure that we engage you as much as possible. It's funny, Rob, we both have backgrounds in mathematics, but my experience was almost the opposite of yours. I received a message that Black people, Black women, don't do well in math. And so when I was in college, I'm a little bit stubborn, maybe a lot stubborn, and I'm a little bit contrarian. And so I got my degree in math really out of sheer stubbornness and thanks to like a lot of Mountain Dew. So it really wasn't pretty. Again, I'm so inspired by your work and really look forward to tonight's discussion. I see that our other two panelists are now visible on the screen, and we'll turn to them in just a second. But I do want to just say a few words here, because we're still kind of eking our way out of the pandemic. And over the past 2 years, we've really seen a lot of innovation in education, really by necessity and in real time. And I don't have kids, so I'm no longer in the educational system, but from what I have seen, even from a distance, I am absolutely in awe of educators. And I really want to acknowledge that tonight's tonight's conversation is really a celebration of education and educators. And, I hope tonight's discussion will leave those of you who are educators feeling seen, appreciated, and inspired to think about education differently. And if you're already doing some work, along the lines of treating students unequally, happily so, I hope that you will feel inspired and encouraged to continue that work. I saw in the chat earlier that Martha Kempe, who I believe is with Wayfinder School, said that that's an approach that they approach education in a manner similar to Agora. I also saw a father share a wonderful story about his daughter learning to read in the chat. And so these are ways that we can learn from each other, here tonight in this space. So I also hope that those of you who joined us tonight who are policymakers and funders will feel inspired, yes, but also challenged. How can we fund education that supports and nurtures lifelong learning? Hopefully these are some topics that we'll really delve into as we discuss amongst ourselves, all of the richness that Rob set up for us tonight. Rob, your presentation really reminds me of a quote that's often attributed to Einstein. You may be familiar with it. It goes, "Everyone is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid." Again, I just took so much away from your presentation, and a few things that really stuck out to me was first, the focus on fanning the flames of curiosity. And then also the willingness of the adults to encourage self-directed education in the students. So often adults may go into positions of authority out of a sense of maybe insecurity. And so there's maybe a tendency at times to force a student into a mold out of an adult feeling of insecurity. And so part of what you are promoting, I believe, is also calling the adults, the educators, into wholeness for themselves. And then the final thing, which I so love, is just the implicit trust that students want to learn. And I just think that is so beautiful, because when you stoke someone's curiosity in a way that is meaningful to them, they become engaged and they do want to learn. And so how do we trust that process more? And so those are just some thoughts that really, resonated with me. Julie, I would love to invite you to come off of mute and maybe share a few thoughts that really resonated with you.
Thank you, Crystal, and thank you, Rob. That was really nice to listen to how you're thinking about the school and the teaching and learning that happens there connect. And I think that's the first thing I'd like to address. I work for the Institute for Humane Education. We are interested in educating a generation of solutionaries. You are talking from Agora exactly why you feel and what you feel is the purpose of education. I think it is not that teachers don't want to treat students well. And it's not that people want to do anything that's harmful on purpose. But I do think we have not had a wide and deep discussion. And that's why I'm so excited about the Education Action Forum and what Educate Maine is doing. We have not had the discussion in Maine about why are we doing this in the first place. And if we're truly preparing students to successfully meet their futures, which, as you said, we have no idea what those are, then we have to work on developing their confidence, their curiosity, and their passions and their skills. And that was the second thing that you said that really struck me, was that this is not anything that this is not easy. This is harder. This is, that idea of coaching and watching and waiting for the moment and then also being there always to support, that's hard. And the understanding that just because somebody doesn't want to learn what I want to teach right now does not mean that they either can't learn it or won't learn it at another time. That takes a lot of leap of faith. I think what you're saying is you've been doing this a long time and you see it work every single time. So I think the question is, how can we together say, okay, we understand that to be true and we understand our purpose is to support kids to meet their futures. How much more can we help everyone to thrive in schools? And, it's one of those things where we can improve a lot if we are courageous enough to do so. There's so many things that are difficult. Even if we improve a little, we'll make a huge difference. And I guess that's what I want to share today, is I don't think we have to go to Agora in a single leap from wherever we are. But I do think you can start making very deep and real changes to why you think you're doing what you're doing and to how you see and support and coach the young people that you're with. So thank you. That put together some really important things for me. And I would agree with you, Crystal. I think it's all hopeful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Julie, for offering kind of a perspective specifically from an educator who works with educators. Patrick, you are firmly in the space of innovation, and I'd really love to hear also your thoughts today.
Yeah, there was a lot to unpack there, Rob. I got a little emotional at several points, especially around the identification of myself as a Rachel as well, and I think that's an important reflection for me as a product of not exactly an Agora School, but when you apply those type of principles to an education. I was so I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Marin Skincare. We create skincare products for people with dry, aggravated skin using a protein found in lobster as the key ingredient. So curiosity was a really important part of our journey, being open-minded to the fact that anything is possible and we are capable of becoming anyone we want to become. I was, I think an interesting reflection for me as you were talking, Rob, was I was raised by a helicopter parent, and it created a lot of apathy in my life. So I got okay grades and I went to college, and I just wasn't very interested in many things. I was unfortunate and fortunate, so grateful and not grateful to have my dad diagnosed with stage 4 cancer when I was in 10th grade. And so one of the themes that you put out there, Rob, was a motivation, an interest, a pursuit of a passion or a purpose. And so as I thought about college, I chose bioengineering because it was a subject that would allow me to assign purpose to what I was doing in my school. But I didn't really still find that purpose and that connection to my education going through courses until I had an experience working in a chemistry lab. And it was there that the identity shift changed for me. So no longer in this lab was I treated like a student or like a learner or a, I think last time we spoke, I used an analogy of a ping pong ball, kind of hitting my way across each side of the boundary conditions for what the system wanted me to become, and hoping that I would come out with the right curve on me. You know, I was treated like a competent adult, like a professional. And because I was treated like that, I became that. I became that identity, and I was able to affirm it because I had this purpose, this passion, this context that I was able to apply behind these things I was doing with my hands rather than learning through the slides. Like you said, it was actually doing things, applied knowledge. And that's how I began to wake up to these concepts of I can be anyone who I want to be, you know. And the identity shift is really, really important. As I was preparing for this and reflecting a little deeper on what an Agora type program might produce, I think it's really interesting that if you allow students to pursue, or people to pursue what they're interested in, and give them a safe environment where you don't cast shame or judgment on a particular set of interests or passions, you then remove or you never even instill the fact that X or Y is cool, X or Y is valuable, interesting. It's all valuable and cool and interesting because you don't receive shame or judgment, you receive validation on what you want to pursue. And when this happens, I think getting back to curiosity, like Crystal said, you don't lose the childlike sense of wonder that you have when you're younger that allows you to boundlessly explore your interests without limiting beliefs, you know, and you don't have to fall in line to what something or someone expects or wants you to be. And so not casting shame or judgment, I think, is a really, really important concept. And then for us as leaders, advisors, mentors, educators, not casting judgment on ourselves for our ability to create systematic change. Like Julie said, it's not easy, it's hard, and it happens with small baby steps. It doesn't happen with an overall mounting one big effort. And so I would just close off my reflections saying, to be fit for service, we must be fit for service. So if we wouldn't cast shame or judgment on our students, we can't cast it on ourselves. We need to show up and treat ourselves the way we would want to treat them so that we can inspire and set a good example.
Patrick, thank you so much for those comments. There is just so much to kind of unpack here, and I do want to try to ground the conversation in really concrete action. Hopefully there can be one or two takeaways that people have from tonight. So Rob, first a question for you. If you can give us a little bit more context on how Agora fits within the educational ecosystem in the Netherlands. So maybe just 3 specific questions for you to consider is, what is Agora's mission? And how many schools in the Netherlands follow the Agora model, if any? And then what is Agora's relationship with local or state authorities?
Okay, yeah, I'm going to start with that last one because that's an easy one. We are a public school within the public school system. No extra fundings. Parents don't have to pay anything to get their kids into our school. And we have to admit all students who apply. So we get all kinds of students. And the biggest thing we have is to stay, what we as a school want to be is we want to be like society. So we want to have diversity within our student population. And we try to maintain that. Then our mission, well, of course, we want to make a change. We not only want to make a change in our home city in Roermond, we want to make a change in education, not just in the Netherlands, but we want to help other people change as well. That's Jennifer told about that within my intro. Within the Netherlands, the Netherlands and Belgium, because they also speak Dutch, so that is easy to collaborate with at first. You know, when we publish something at first, we published it in Dutch, so the Belgians started reading it as well. Within the Netherlands and Belgium together, there are at the moment 20 schools. They aren't ours, but 20 other public schools who said we want to be like Agora, and they are doing this as well. When we started in 2015 up until 2019, we were the only school that was growing in our district. All the other schools were dropping with like 20% on a yearly basis because of birth rates, and we were growing. So the virus is spreading, and as Jennifer said in her intro, I'm now also getting in next year. Next school year, I will also have a lot of time to visit other schools and to help other schools to take steps, because I don't want to tell people they have to become Agoras. I want to explain people that, and maybe that's also a bit what Julie was talking about. We have to realize that I don't think it's strange that the education system is developed how it is. And there is something very strange with education, because everybody was in it for about 15 years. So everybody has a sense for it and a feeling for it and an opinion on it. And despite the fact that they all know that they are not professionals. So, and it would be, for instance, I believe in America, baseball or basketball is a big sport. If somebody tries to change the rules of basketball, I expect that everybody in America has an opinion on it. And they feel that it has to stay the same because they're used to it. And I think that is what education development is as well. The educational system, how it is, the main principles, they started during Industrial Revolution. Then it was easy to think in batches and ages, and because that was the zeitgeist at the moment. And then everybody got used to it. And then we got this 15-year enduring commercial, how to become a teacher, because you start with that commercial at the age of 4. Think about it, it's the only occupation in the world where you get a 15-year commercial on. So these people who love this commercial go back into education. And of course, we also have people who love kids and come back into education. Well, and with this in mind, we shouldn't be sad or mad that we can't quickly change this, because it's a whole process. And we have to help people to change it. So, and we can only do that by taking a good look at these people and treat them how we want them to treat students. And that is, look, where is the opportunity for them? Where is their stretch zone? How can we use the stretch zone of our teachers to change this system within our personal school or within our personal environment? And that's what I'm gonna, well, that's the news I hope to spread around the world, and that's where I want to help a lot of schools. And maybe at the end, some schools will be something like Agora, but that's not the point. The point is we have to go with the zeitgeist, because otherwise we're not preparing children for their future. We are preparing children for our past.
Yeah. Mm.
And I don't know if I got all your questions now, but that's my mission.
Yeah, you did, and then some. I want to take just a moment. There's so much even in what you just said that I want to go back to Patrick and Julie to think about. So Patrick and Julie, I'm going to give you these questions, and then I'm going to give kind of a bit of a public service announcement while you think about them. So Patrick, for you, the question is, Rob just alluded to, for the adults, that we really want to treat them the way we want them to treat students. So thinking about how to get them in their stretch zone. And there's no one better than staying in the stretch zone and learning how to succeed in a stretch zone than an entrepreneur. So I would love to hear your thoughts on what that would look like in a kind of train the trainer model? How do you help teachers, or how would you introduce that stretch mentality into an educational system, and more specifically within Maine? And then Julie, Rob said a phrase that I love: the virus is spreading, the good virus, right? So you raised a question, Julie, of, why aren't we asking the question of, why are we doing this? Why are we approaching education this way? So what would it take for us to spread the virus of the Agora message, the Agora model? What would it take for us to begin to more intentionally question the approach that we are currently taking in the educational system, and introduce, as you said earlier, step by step, a transition to a different model of thinking? So while you two are thinking about those questions, I'd just like to let everyone know that we are going to go over a little bit tonight because we had some technical difficulties at the top of the hour. So we started later than anticipated. We hope that you will stay tuned and stay engaged in this conversation, because I feel like we're just getting started. And we have two additional panelists and guests who will be joining us right after this round of questions. So just wanted to let you all know, we do anticipate staying over a little bit, and we hope that you stay with us. And now, Julie and Patrick, back to you. Since this is intended to be a discussion, I'm going to ask you to come off of mute, stay off of mute, and let's really get into it.
Who's going first, Julie?
I was going to answer the question she gave you first, because I thought that was interesting.
Go for it.
But I want to hear what your answer is too. I mean, one of the answers I have is that, the comment you just made, Rob, you keep zinging these little pieces into everything you're saying. But the comment you made about the 15-year commercial, and the fact that people who did well during those 15 years and liked it are often the ones who come back and support the same system to do the same thing all over again. So I think, to me, it's about helping the educators have a variety of different experiences. And one of the most powerful things that I've done to get some change with teachers is to get teachers in one another's classroom, especially teachers who share the same kids. Because when they watch somebody else work with the kids that they maybe aren't as successful with, and they see somebody else is successful and what they're doing to do that, and there's time to actually talk about that and reflect, I see teachers change, and they're able to connect with students more easily and more productively than they were before. And so I think the answer for me is we have to get Patrick, well, we have to clone Patrick, but besides that, we have to get entrepreneurs, we have to have apprenticeships and mentorships, and have people who don't think the same way work with the students, and work with them in a way that responds to what the students themselves are interested in, what the students themselves want to explore. And then the other thing is we have to turn all of our teachers into coaches. I think we still have a terrible disagreement in this country about whether we're supposed to be stuffing content or we're supposed to be developing skills. And for some reason, that is, this dichotomy that we don't seem to be able to bridge. And like you said, Harvard is in the internet. We don't need to be stuffing content at a certain time to all students at the same way. It doesn't make sense. It's not even the most productive way to have everybody develop, like you said. So we have to start thinking about those ideas, like what we're doing, and then we have to start having experiences that help teachers and students see themselves differently. And then we have to talk about it.
Yeah. Can I briefly respond, Crystal?
Yes,
And
please.
Patrick, yeah, because we need teachers who learn kids how to stuff knowledge, but we don't need them on a daily basis. And that's the same with coaches. We need people who are great coaches, but we don't need them on a daily basis. So we shouldn't divide the worlds in two camps. There are no two camps. We need to collaborate. And talking about these teachers, I don't want to blame people who loved education that they are still in education, because they love children. But what we also need to do is develop and grow together. And I miss a little bit about that. And we need to get some schwung into that. I don't know if that's English, but get it.
So Patrick, what are your thoughts?
A lot of notes. That was a beautiful answer, Julie. I really like that. You stole most of what I was going to say, but I think what resonated a lot was, and none of this is egotistical. I think it's important to use people like myself as an example from a very humble perspective. And Crystal, the question you posed, how to introduce stretch mentality into educational system. Very, very good, high quality question. Very thoughtful. Commend you on that question. It's a really interesting question. What came to my mind in what Julie is getting into is how to start the change with changing the teachers. And I thought about this kind of cycle. For me, it's always going to go back to identity, and so much will trickle from that. So I think that beliefs and values are the root that will shape actions. And then once those beliefs and values, as a person, you begin to act in alignment with those, you look at the actions you're doing and you create an identity, and it's this loop. Then you have the identity that has the values and the beliefs, and then you do the actions, and the actions further cement the identity. And I say that from the perspective of, if you want to change the system that is having such an impression on the children, you want to change the folks that are, executing the system. So change the teachers. And how do you change the teachers? And I like that you said, Rob, there's not two camps. And what came to my mind is there's all of these amazing people in this Zoom here and in the comments, and they all have this common, they all understand this. We all understand this. And maybe there are some that don't yet, or are not motivated or excited, or maybe they can't see the vision of what it would be like if more students that were coming out of an Agora style school, and what the world would create, what world would they create if they came out? And so maybe we could, like you said, Julie, and I don't know, but I would think as a product of this type of education, in an entrepreneur, how could we change the teachers? Through exposure, through experiences, through getting them passionate and excited about the vision of the world that is created by the new types of students that come out. And maybe they do love the students, and that's probably the percent. Go ahead, Julie.
No, I'm sorry. I just want to say, I agree with Rob. I have no blame for people who want to go into the very difficult and challenging and often heartbreaking and often rewarding, all at the same time, profession that is teaching. And I just think we have to have many more ways of teaching and learning immediately visible to one another. And we have to be sharing successes. And I don't think we are set up very well to do that.
Yeah, one of the things also, Patrick, that your comments just sparked in my mind is the question, why don't we offer sabbaticals to public school teachers to give them the time and opportunity to explore, right? I was like, duh, that just seems like such a, obvious, which means that it's not simple, and likely there's a lot of like policy considerations behind it. But that seems like it would be a great opportunity to really protect people professionally, but also encourage them to stretch. Now, we could keep, I'm going to just pause you just really quickly, Patrick, because we could keep going. And we have 2 students who are currently living, in our educational system. And I'd really like them to join the conversation. So Katrina Hatt and Megan Gordon from the Narraguegas High School, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Katrina.
So we have been talking amongst ourselves, and we're so glad that you are now joining the conversation. And I just love to get your thoughts on what you've been hearing from Rob's presentation tonight and the discussion up until now.
I think it's a great idea. Going into the CTE program, so the technical school, has been awesome because it's a great experience for me to be hands-on on something that I'm really interested in, rather than just going to school and doing an English class.
I think for sure it has definitely been something that we have always thought about during our education, about what we hope our schooling and our environment around us kind of turns out in the future. I think that being part of the tech school, learning like this amazing career, getting hands-on experience, and having the chance to be professional while still being students has been a great opportunity for us.
I agree with that.
That's wonderful. Rob, I saw you chuckling a little bit. I'm curious what's going on in your mind.
Yeah, well, she explained it perfectly. If you're a learner, you are a professional, and we should treat you like a professional.
Mhm.
So the first thing when I see kids come in is I see people who want to learn. And a lot of people do the opposite, and they treat you the opposite. And I think, I believe it was Megan who said, yes, is it Megan who said, they treat you like, I can't say it again, but for me, it was spot on. They have to treat you like a professional, and then the magic happens.
Yeah. Yes.
So Megan and Katrina, I have a question. So again, I don't have kids in the educational system. I don't have kids at all, but I'm curious, did you have to test into CTE, and what does CTE stand for?
CTE is like, I think it's coastal. It's the full name is like CWCIT, coastal, like
Okay.
Washington. It's the,
It's a big, long name.
yeah, it's for like
Okay.
Down East Maine, and it stands for like Down East Maine Technical Institute in the short run of it. We didn't have to, we had to apply, but we didn't have to do an interview process this year because there were so few students interested in health occupations, which is what we were in. Next year, they do have to do an interview process because there are so many more students that have applied this year.
Interesting. Wow, that's excellent. I'm glad to see that more students are applying. I'm curious, do you have any clarifying questions to ask either Rob or any of the other panelists that you've heard tonight? If not, that's okay. We'll, invite the other panelists to keep going with their comments.
I did have a question for Rob. What happens if someone like changes their interests? Does it automatically change their course of learning, or does it kind of alter?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And of course, that happens a lot because we work with students. And the big benefit of that is that as soon as you're going to dig into something, you get a perspective on it also for your future. You will get a feeling for it. Is this something I want to be or not? But it doesn't matter. You learn anyway. So because you can better know that now than when you're 21 and at a nursery school where you don't want to be at, And so if they change their perspective, we change with them. But what we also make sure in the background is that within their projects, they will keep up with their English, with their Dutch, with their mathematics. So of course, kids can decide on the topic of a project. And they can also decide on which tasks they want to do. But we as grown-ups know what they also, as a minimum basis, have to know. So we have to prepare them for the exams. So can we connect to their project, the things that they also need to learn and need to do. So, and it doesn't matter to me if you are studying, if your topic is mobile phones, glass or water. I will know that I can connect it to mathematics, English, science, geography. That doesn't matter to me. But what you are getting is a perspective of your future as well. You're getting that for free because you decided on the topic. So that's why it doesn't matter to me when somebody changes it. Because at the long term, if you have changed it a lot, you know your purpose. Is that good enough answer?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have another question. How do you get like basic skills like math and English into these learning curriculums? And is it like based on like life skills or like a learning curriculum?
Because we are a Dutch public school, we have to do the same things as any other Dutch public school. So we have these big folders in which it says for mathematics, at the end of the line, kids have to know this, 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 this. For English, this, this, this. It's even more crazier in the Netherlands than it is in America, because in the Netherlands, in secondary education, there are about 100 courses where you can choose from. It's ridiculous. But so let's say somebody wants to know everything about this glass as a project. And that somebody, then I could say, as a mathematics teacher, I could say, how many water can you pour in there? And that's how we connect it to mathematics. But suppose this is a kid who has never done mathematics before. Then we're going to ask him, how are you going to solve it? And this kid will say, or kid will ask me, how am I going to solve it? So I, as a mathematics teacher, can do a lot of things. I can give him a measuring cup just to pour the water in there, pour it back in and see how many liters or gallons are in there. Then they have a feeling for how much water can get in there. But when they are on a higher level of mathematics, then I will tell them it's a cylinder. You have calculated something, what was a cubical form. Look up on the internet how you can calculate a cylinder, because this is a cylinder. And if I see that kids are struggling, not with finding how to calculate cylinder, but where do I put these, what is the length and what is the diameter, then I can help assist them with that. So if I take a good look at them when they are working, I will exactly know if I have to give them that measuring cup, if I have to tell them what the diameter is, or if I just can say, this is a cylinder, look it up. But I have to make sure that they can answer all these questions at the end of secondary. Good enough?
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the questions as well.
Yeah, as do I, because that was actually going to be my question. So we were like right there with each other. I do want to ask a follow-up question, Rob, because you've mentioned the internet several times now, and I'm curious what role being able to get online with high-speed internet plays in your teaching model.
Well, I was just talking about prepare kids for their future. Internet isn't the future. Internet is the past. And we still have people who can't handle it. So it has to be a big role in the school. If kids can't handle the internet in a school, how are they able to handle it in their room upstairs, at home? So we have to give them internet access. We have to give them the ability to look up things that are totally wrong, in my opinion, because it's also an opinion. We also have to take that in mind. Yeah. Because if they look stuff up like that, then we can debate it. Then we can compare it with other facts on the internet. And then we can have a discussion on which of these facts are correct. The facts that Putin is saying at the moment, or that the Europeans are telling us at the moment. So we can act like it's not the main source of information at the moment, but every kid gets born with the phone in hand, and that's with an internet connection.
Yeah, and I love that, and it also makes me very scared because there are parts of Maine that are still not able to connect to the internet well. And
yeah, of course.
But that's yeah. Go ahead.
That's the problem we have as educators, because we believe that we can only help kids with something that we're not scared of. So how long do we need to wait to teach them the internet then? Because I will be scared for the internet for my whole life, but not with a full internet. So I have to help these kids to get connected with it and to learn stuff on it. And that will also, when you work with kids who can have and find all the information, also bad information, my curiosity is that English, it drops, because I see that these kids can handle it They ask me good questions about sites which I wouldn't advise them to go on.
Mhm. Yeah.
But that's in a contained area. I'm there. I'm open for these questions.
Well, and I want to make sure to invite Julie and Patrick back into the conversation, because I feel like we could talk about this for such a long time and go down, into very nuanced pieces on so many different things. I want to pull us back up just a little bit, especially as I'm looking at how little time left we have with you, Rob. Julie, I'm curious, can you, and I've actually even seen in the chat some educators indicating that they follow a similar model or Agora style teaching approach. Julie, can you just talk a little bit about what institutions or what educational programs here in Maine that you're aware of that follow a similar model, or maybe taking steps in that direction?
So I think there are a lot of individual teachers who somehow run upstream when the organization might not be, but are the ones that kids might connect to. I think there are, I think some of the CTE programs are closer because students choose which one they want to be in, and then all of the pieces can get connected to that. I think some of the smaller, more isolated schools in Maine actually end up being more flexible. Some of what's happening on the islands, for example, you have a school of 11 or a school of 17. You can do a lot of different things. But again, you have to have the vision and the agreement of the teachers that this is what you want to do, and you have to have the support of the community and the families. And so I always think it's possible. I don't know. I think a lot of our alternative programs, and I think some of what you saw in the chat, is there's a lot of freedom to work with students in ways that make sense when they've already not done well or failed out of regular programs. It's kind of like people say, oh, well, do whatever you can. And then those educators are doing amazing things and sort of reclaiming people's lives and supporting students to become the best and the most that they can be and what they want to be. So it's really variable. There isn't a lot in Maine that is a model.
Right.
I don't know. I think that's how I would answer the
Yeah,
question.
thank you. No, I appreciate it. Patrick, go ahead, jump in.
I'd just like to pose to Rob. I'm not part of the system, again, a product from it. So a lot of my learnings here coming from active listening to all of you, and Julie in particular has said in the chat and in her speech a few times, align all of these members of the value chain to a common why and a common set of beliefs and values. And it's how you go about executing organizational change in a business. So it makes sense to me as I'm listening that is how you would execute systematic change through an educational system. So Rob, how do you think one might go about aligning these different members of the educational value chain around a common why and set of values?
Well, first of all, I believe that's impossible, because that's like getting everybody in America to agree that we don't play basketball anymore. That's not going to happen. So, and there will always be, because we can talk about changing the system, but it's not about change. For me, it's not about change. It's going with the zeitgeist. And also in the future, there will be parents and students who believe that the way it is now is best for them. So we don't have to change all of it. But what I do believe is that we have to offer different types of education within cities and within reach for children. And I believe that's the first thing to do. So the first thing to do is to find a couple of spaces, schools, and start doing things different there, just to give people the opportunity and have that choice to be in. First have to be on agreement with everything, everybody in a district or with everybody in a state. Well, on which topic did that ever happen?
Yeah. So
Can I ask a question that I've been burning to ask, Crystal?
absolutely. And so I will say this will be the final question, and then we'll go into wrapping up. We do want to respect people's evening and Rob's morning.
I just want to ask Rob, when we were talking before this event, you mentioned a few days ago that at the beginning, your teachers made a lot of mistakes, and you talked about the anxiety level that was there first and how much harder it is to teach this way when you don't have all the answers. And it isn't a matter of just playing something out. It requires so much being present and reading and thinking. And I wondered if you could just share that, because I think some of the people listening might need to hear that it wasn't just that all these people came and they were just totally amazing on day one.
Oh, Rob, you're on mute.
I was keeping that for the end. I was expecting Crystal to ask me to say some final words. So Crystal, you don't have to ask me to say final words. I'm just going to do it now. So I believe I can talk about this with a lot of confidence, but that's not how this process works. And it's a bit the same as I was talking about the internet before. You know, we can start doing things when we feel totally confident with it, but then we will never be able to make this change. Because if you start changing something, you have to feel uncomfortable. That's the biggest warning system we have. That means that you are in a grow mode and maybe stretching too far. And that if you are getting those thoughts, it also tells me that it's reflection time, that I have to reflect on what am I doing? And am I doing this in a good way? Is it still positive? Is it still contributing? And failures contribute a lot. You have to, so we don't, that's the biggest thing that I hate at schools, is that we act like we have a fail-proof environment. Because if you have a fail-proof environment, that can only happen if you lead and everybody follows your footsteps exactly. And I can tell you that it's not possible to follow your footsteps exactly. And so it's a facade, but we keep up that facade. And with that, a lot of kids get anxious and they get fail anxiety and stuff like that. So what we did was that we just told the parents, we want to strive for this. You can come on board or not. But if you're on board, we're going to tell you all our failures because we have to solve them together. And if I have discovered something in the last 7 years, one of the most important things I have discovered is that you know, when we ask kids to do a presentation, we always ask them to study something and then do the presentation. What I've learned is you have to do it the other way around. And why do you need to do it the other way around? It's very simple. If you start studying something and you do it in a good way, you know that you're not a specialist. You know at the end that you're going to do a speech, but there is somebody who knows a lot more because you've been reading his book or watching his videos. So you know that you're not a professional and you're still going in front of a group. Well, that's exciting. That's exciting, but also anxious. But if you do it the other way around, I want to know everything about, first thing that comes, Great Barrier Reef. People, if I shout in this group, 39 participants, I want to know everything about the Great Barrier Reef. I bet you that within 5 minutes, somebody put something in the chat, which is going to help me. If I ask this in front of a crowd of people, somebody's going to stand up and say, well, I know a lot about the Great Barrier Reef, or my neighbor knows somebody in Australia who knows a bit about the Great Barrier Reef. So then presenting something is rewarding because you get connections from it. Then if kids present something what they don't know but want to know, then they immediately get help from the audience. Well, no fail anxiety there. So we have to do that in a different way. And if you want to change something or take a next step or want to grow, you have to be completely honest about it. with everybody, because everybody can help you.
Mhm.
So to go back to your question, if I have to say it in a couple of sentences, the biggest change with me and my team in these last 7 years is 7 years ago, we panicked every other week, and the panic lasted a week or 2 weeks. And now, after all these things, we know that this panic is like an iteration. We know, okay, we are panicking a little bit again. That means it's reflection time. We have to look back, see at what we are doing, and get that confidence again. And that made us change. That made our process change. We aren't panicking every week now anymore. We are panicking every 3 months, and we don't panic for a week anymore. We notice that we panic and say, okay, it's reflection time. And that's how we grow.
Wow. That is great. And sadly, we are now at the point that we need to wrap up. And I'd like for us to end by thinking about the future, right? Because that's how we started the conversation, thinking about what it would take and what it would look like for more schools and more educators to be courageous, to seed curiosity in students, and to really encourage self-directed learning. And so I'd like to first turn to Katrina and Megan, invite them back into the conversation. You both spoke about how going into CTE was really a positive experience for you. And I'd like for you just to, if you can, project out a few years. And I would love to hear your thoughts on how you believe your next few years as you enter into the paid professional workforce will change or has changed because of your experience with CTE.
Go for it. Okay. I personally think that already going into a professional setting is going to stay with me throughout my career, throughout the next 5 years, the next 10. And I will be able to take everything that I have learned from being in this wonderful program and taking my now profession, as a way of putting it, and going out into the world and helping people the way that I never imagined that I could ever do.
Yeah, I know that I've always wanted to be in healthcare, like since I was little. So this was a big thing. And seeing my mom go through nursing school was crazy hard, but that's what I want to do. And I want to be the professional that people can go to. And just this program alone has showed me the responsibilities of a CNA and the responsibilities of just being an adult, like working for money. And we got a job really early on in the program just because of this program and the opportunities it led for us.
That's amazing. And I was pretty intentional in saying paid professional because I respect, and I heard you, Megan, saying that you are being treated as a professional, or Katrina, that both of you in this program are being treated as professionals. You're being asked to show up as professionals. And that's part of what is making this so engaging. And that's the beauty of the self-directed learning, giving you the power over your educational process and engaging you in a way that really makes sense for you. And so, to broadly speaking, to the rest of the panelists, first, I just want to say thank you again for giving your time this evening. Also to the participants, thank you so much for showing up. In the spirit of collective learning, I would like all the participants to get in the chat and just say what they think will be possible. Share with us what you think will be possible as Maine, schools start to see this idea to catch this great virus and have it show up in more schools and institutions throughout Maine. It's here. There's some schools already doing this great work who are meeting students and encouraging them to be courageous, to be self-directed learners, to be super curious. But what would Maine look like if we spread this idea more broadly? And so I'm going to specifically ask our panelists to answer that question. And so Patrick, I will go to you first.
I wrote in the chat more amazing people like Katrina and Megan.
Yeah.
let me add to that. I got a Rob quote down in my notes. More people that act like seaweed. They take in what they need from the environment in order to survive ethically and put back out into the environment that which makes it collectively better. And they go with the flow. Those are the types of people that I'd like to see more of.
Thank you. Julie, what are your thoughts?
There's so many thoughts. I think I like a lot what Jennifer Chase just wrote in the chat, the joy of collaboration between youth and adults, building stronger communities full of curious and courageous people. I think we really have to think about what we're trying to do together, and then we have to really figure it out together, teachers and students and administrators together. What is it that we want these amazing young people to be prepared to do with their lives?
Yeah.
And how can we help them get there?
I love that. Thank you. And Rob, you have already given your final thoughts, so I'm not going to let you off the hook so easily. There's actually a really interesting question in the chat that I'd love to pose to you now. I'm not sure, Joe Nathan, if I'm going to get your question completely right, but what I think you're asking is, how do we begin to instruct and train current teachers and administrators, or those who are in the process of being trained to be teachers and administrators, more of this stretched thinking? How do we intervene in the current training system in a way that's meaningful? So Rob, I will let that be your last question of the morning.
I think Megan and Katrina explained it to us. We have to put these teachers in the environment. So we need to put these teachers in the same position as we want them to put children. And as long as we, during their schooling, don't put them in that professional position where they need to do it also, then it will not work. And that's what Megan and Katrina tried to learn us today.
Yeah.
So we have to combine it. We can't teach it, because teaching and preaching is only a couple words, a couple letters difference. You have to experience it, and you have to be treated as a professional, but are also being able to do it as a professional.
Wow.
I see these girls like it.
Yeah. Heads bobbing all over the place.
Yeah.
And that is a great note to end this wonderful and really rich discussion. Again, thank you so much to all of our panelists, with a particular and special thank you to Rob for joining us so late or now early in your day. Have a wonderful morning. And again, thank you to all our participants for joining us tonight. Have a good night, everyone.